Hi everyone, this is Trisha and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to put together this zippered bag. It's got some nice little pockets here in the front and a nice long strap to hang. Okay, so depending on what you want to make your bag for, you can choose your fabrics. I've chosen a theme with some cameras, so my initial print has some travel, you know, like postcards and such. That's my print because I want to make a bag for my camera. And I think it would be cute to use it as a travel bag. I can also use it for my makeup or any other type of products that I want to take with me. So this is the fabric that I've chosen. Of course, you choose whatever fabrics you like. And I've decided to coordinate it with this one. I've got this one, and I think this is what's going to be the inside, my lining. And then I've got this red and this blue that are found in this initial fabric. So this was my first choice, and then just choose fabrics to coordinate. Unless you want to just do it all one color, then by all means just do that. And I've got about half a yard of all of these fabrics, and I think I purchased a yard of this, but I think that if you're going to make it all solid, make sure you get a yard, and then if you want to do the inside, the lining, get another yard of that. But have at least a yard of fabric for the size piece or bag that I'm going to make. I'm also going to add some felt in there, so I've got some white felt right here. It's just regular felt, and I bought this by the yard as well. Now you can use quilter's batting if you prefer to use that inside of your bag. I'm also going to be using this type of strap trim, and I've chosen this black one. This is going to be for the handles on my bag. You can always make your handles out of fabric if you prefer, but this is what I've chosen. And I'm going to be needing a zipper. Now you can just use a regular zipper like this one. This is a nice thick one, but you can use a thinner one, the other regular type of, and I'm using a plastic one. And I found this one that has this type of opening, so I decided that I wanted to use that one for my bag, so I'm going to use this one. And the size doesn't matter. My bag is going to be a 12 by 12, so I do want my zipper to be a little bigger than 12 inches. So this is a 14 inch, so I think a 14 inch, this is an 18 inch. I can always make it smaller, or maybe I'll use the whole length and have it go around the sides of the bag. Okay, I'm going to be using cutting tools, whether you use your scissors or a rotary cutter and a mat, and of course you'll need something to measure with or a straight edge to cut with. So I've got that. And of course we're going to need our sewing machine with some coordinating thread. I'm just going to use white thread to sew my bag. Okay, let's get to crafting. Okay, so I'm going to be making the front and back panel, or rather the sides, the larger sides of my bag. And I'm going to do, as I said, a bag that is a 12 by 12. That is my goal, to do a 12 by 12. It might come out a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit bigger, but that's what I'm going to aim for. So whatever fabric you choose, and if you decided to just use one fabric for your whole bag, then the first thing you're going to cut is a 12.5 by 12.5 square. And you want 2 of those, okay? But I'm going to do mine with a pattern of little strips of fabric. So I'm actually going to cut strips of this and strips of this one. So I want to cut 6 of each, and they're going to be 2.5 by 12.5 inches. So the first thing I do is I square off my fabric. So I've already folded it, so all the edges are nice, and then I folded it again. So I have the fold over here on all the edges, and I'm going to square off the edge over here. And that's why I like to use a cutting mat and a rotary cutter for this. You could mark it with a fabric pencil or pen, and then just use your scissors to cut it. Okay, so this is my pattern, and I have a print. So this is going up and down. This is the top and this is the bottom according to this print. So I'm going to cut 12 inches down this way, and I'm actually going to start off at the 10 here, the 10-inch line. Make sure everything's aligned on my grid. And then go down 12, which would be at the 22. So I'm going to cut 12.5. So I'm going to go 22.5. Now that I'm thinking about it, at the top where I'm going to add the zipper, I actually want that to fold over 1/2 inch rather than a 1/4 inch. My seams are going to be 1/4 inch. That's why I was adding 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch, which would be 1/2 inch. But I've decided this last moment that I want 1/2 inch and then 1/4 inch at the bottom. So I need to go for 22 3/4. So let's go ahead and move this up and get a better measurement, which would be 12 3/4. Just checking it. And that is my length going up and down. All right, so now that I've got my 12 3/4, and I'm actually going to write that down for myself because I am making notes of my bag so that I can have this for future reference. So I'm going to put 3/4 here for myself. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to turn this around because I want 12.5-inch pieces. So now I'm going to trim off this raw edge over here. So I'm going to square it off here really nice. There we go. And trim off that raw edge. And I'm just going to move it so that I can measure. And this time I need a 1/4 inch seam on each side. So I'm going to go 12.5. Okay, so I have these two pieces right here that would be used to create my bag if I wanted a solid piece for these sides, you know, the front and the back of my bag. Okay, but I want to do it in little strips. So this piece that I have here, which I've already cut at 12 3/4, here's my pretty pattern, so just to let you know that that's going up and down. I'm going to cut these pieces at 2.5. So since I have them on a fold here, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I want 6 of each of my 2 fabrics. So in the end, I'm going to have 12 pieces, and then I can coordinate half of the 6 of this one and half of the 6 of this one for both sides. Okay, let's do this. I'm actually going to put it like this. I've already cut 4, as you can see here, so I need 2 more. These are facing each other here. It's 2 layers of fabric. Okay. So there we go. Now I have 6 strips of this fabric, and I'm going to repeat the process with this one here, keeping in mind that my length is now 12 3/4. But my width is going to be 2.5. So I'm going to cut 6 of those strips out of this now, and I'll be back. Okay, so why I've cut them at 2.5. I want this to be 2 inches wide, but I got to give them a 1/4 inch on each side for the seam. So then that is a 1/2 inch that I added. So that is why I cut them at 2.5 width. And then I'm going to take the blue and my pattern. So take 2 of each strip, and then I'm going to sew these at a 1/4 inch. So I'm putting them face to face, and it'd be nice if you did iron your fabric before you start, you know, doing this, and I should have done that, especially with this blue one. But I'm now going to put all of these with the right sides facing each other. Okay. And I'm going to continue with these, of course, but I'm going to put a pin just to hold them in place. Now I'm only going to sew on one side, one of the edges. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I brought it to the sewing machine, and I'm sewing, as I said, a 1/4 inch. And I've already sewn all these little pieces over here. So I've backstitched when I started, sewed all the way down, backstitched here. And instead of just removing it and cutting it, I just went ahead and I placed my next piece under there, do a back stitch before I started, and continued on repeating at every end. And that is what I'm doing over here. making sure the edges are aligned. Sometimes when you put a little pin that unaligns them, but you could just pin it twice, or just move it and line it up at when you start. Okay, so now I'm just trimming the thread to separate the pieces, and we're going to take these over to our workstation or our ironing board and iron these seams and then iron them open. Alright, so now what I've done is I've ironed all these pieces, and I've ironed down the side, especially where the seam is, where I've sewn. And now I can pop these open, and I've already done all of these. I can pop these open. You can go like that with your finger, and then just iron that. So you have these two beautiful strips that have been sewn together. Now, I want you to keep in mind that if you are doing a print that has a right side, that you always have one side to the top. So what I'm going to do, so that I don't confuse mine, this is my pattern, and I know that this is the top of my pattern. I'm just going to put a pin in there. And that's what I'll do, is I'll mark all of the top of my strips with a pin so that I know that this is the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing the rest of these. Okay, so now I have, out of the 6 and 6, I had 12 strips, and I've sewn the pairs together, so now I have 6 double strips. So now I'm going to take half of that, which is 3 of these, and I'm going to sew these together. Now I'm making sure, since I pinned them, this is the top, or for you, you're looking at it upside down, but this is going to be my top. But let me turn this around so that you're looking at it, so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. And now I'm going to want these to lay like this. So I've got to put this one facing down onto here. And I can go ahead and pin it. And I can actually remove these other pins now if I want. Okay, so now I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch to sew these two pieces together. And then I'm going to put this one over here. And I'm going to go ahead and pin it now, and I can go ahead and sew it while I'm at it, while I have these pieces together. Okay, so I'm going to sew 1/4 inch and then a 1/4 inch over here. Try not to capture these fabrics here, okay? And I'm going to do the same with these 3 other pieces. Alright, so I've ironed my pieces now. Okay, so if you remember in the beginning that I've cut my panels out of one solid piece of fabric. So you have the choice of doing that. Either do a solid or do it in little strips like this. Now, when I've done it like this, it actually ends up a little bit smaller. This was 10 and a half. It's 12 3/4 the length. That has not changed. But the width was 12 and a half because I wanted a 1/4 inch seam on each side to give me a 12 inch. And then of course I'm going to use 1/2 inch up here and then a 1/4 inch down here. So at the 12 3/4 it'll lose the 3/4 in seams. So it'll be 12 inches. So this will be a 12 by 12 if I was to use this. Now what I've created here, the length are still 12 3/4. The length is still the same. Now I'm putting this here. Instead of ending up with a 12 and a half inch wide, I'm ending it up with an 11 and a half inch wide. Now what I could do is I could cut another strip of this piece here and add that to this to make it a little bit wider, which is what I would prefer. Okay, so when you do something like this, measure it, and if you're happy with the size, just leave it at that. You don't have to stick by any rules, because we're going to do one, couple of pieces at a time. We're not going to cut everything out and then sew it together. We're going to cut a little bit at a time. And the reason that I do that is because whenever I piece fabrics together, sometimes I don't get my measurements correct, and then I end up with the wrong measurement, and then I've cut another piece. It's going to line it, and it's probably cut too big or too small, and then I have to waste fabric and cut another piece. When it's too big, yeah, I can make it smaller, but when it's too small, I can't obviously make it bigger, so I end up wasting a piece of fabric. So I do my pieces one at a time. So I've done my front and my back, but what I am going to do is I am going to cut another strip, a 12 3/4 by 2.5 to add here, and then another one over here, so that I can have this pattern closing off at the edges. And then we're going to use whatever that width measurement is for the rest of the, like for the lining, for example, for the rest of the bag. Okay, so let me go ahead and add that on there, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, so now I've added length to my width, and actually these little panels now that I've made are actually 13.5 inches now. Okay, it doesn't matter because we're probably going to be trimming here and there, and we'll see how this all ends up being, but this is what I'm going to start with. So now what I want to do is I'm going to add a filler to this, or I'm going to add a fabric to this. I could use felt, or I could use a quilter's batting. The reason that I'm using felt is that it's just inexpensive, and I can use any color that I want to put in there. It just costs less, more, you know, cost effective than using a quilt, a nice quilt batting in there. Although the felt is actually really nice. Now, you don't have to put any of that in there. You can just do your bag like this, and then, you know, add the lining, which will give you 2 layers of fabric. And then of course I'm going to add a pocket, so that'll add another layer of fabric to at least one side. But it's going to be a very floppy bag, and I want to give it a little bit of body, and that's why I'm adding felt. And if you do quilter's batting, of course, that'll add a little bit of body to it as well. Okay, so I've got my 2 panels here, and I've already kind of compared them, and they're pretty much the same size. This one seems to be a little bit less, but that's okay, because you know what, this is the one that I'm going to use to cover with a pocket. Okay, so now I want to cut 2 pieces of felt, and I'm just going to grab a corner here, the 2 edges here of felt, put these on top. Super easy. And actually, if you cut them just a little bit bigger, that'll be fine. And of course, you can just use your rotary cutter or grab your scissors and just start cutting. Okay, so now that I've got my 2 felt pieces cut out, I'm going to take like this and like this. And like I said, if it's a little bit bigger, that is fine, because then we can trim anything off. Okay, so what I do want to make sure, let me get my little ironing board up here. What I do want to make sure is that I did iron this nice and flat, so I can spread it out nicely over this felt. And if I didn't, I'm just going to spray a little bit of water. Again, you don't have to do this. I'm just doing it because I want this to be as crispy, open as I can, these seams. Okay, so now that I've got that, I'm going to put a pin right down the middle to grab my felt and my square here that I've made. And just make sure that it's nice and flat and pin it down. Just pin it as much as you feel you need to pin it. So now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to repeat the same thing that I did with this one, with this other 2, you know, the fabric and the felt. I'm going to repeat that with this other, sorry, I'm just going to repeat this, okay, this process. So iron it out real nice on top of your either your quilter's batting or your felt, or whatever other little fabric you might have that's nice and thick and you want to put inside. But just make sure that it's not too thick that you can't sew through it. Okay. Now that I have it like this, I can do some quilting to it if I want. And I'm going to keep it real simple. I'm just going to sew down, kind of like down the channel or the canal of these 2, you know, lines here. Or I can go a little bit over on top of this one. Now, if you want to be really creative and do an embroidery stitch down, you know, maybe on the more solid, you know, fabric, you know, instead of the print, you can do that. Now, if you were doing this with just your, let me just grab one of these for example. If just a plain piece of fabric, of course you would just lay it on the felt like I did this one, and then just pin it, obviously iron it nice, and pin it down. And you can do the same thing. You can sew down the lines or just sew across, and then this way. You can do whatever pattern you want. But let me tell you something. The more stitching you do on it, the more lines you put on it, it kind of like shrinks up the fabric. So just keep that in mind, okay? All right, so I'm going to do that with both of these. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew I'm tempted to do diagonal ones. So if I do that, let's see, I'm going to need to get my straight edge. And let me grab a pencil real quick, just 1 minute. Okay, so I just got myself a little, little tailor's, dressmaker's pencil. This if you could just use a little brush on the other end to remove it, or actually just rubbing it off, or even in the wash. So what I'm going to do, let me get these pins out of the way and put them over here instead. A little bit off to the side here. Let me put one on this side. Just keep my fabric all in place. You want to pin it really well so it doesn't move around on you. Okay, so I'm going to go from corner to corner here and make a pencil line. Is that showing up? Yeah, it is. Okay. Make a pencil line here. My pencil is not very sharp, but I'm going to make a pencil line. Trust me, the line is there. You can't really see it. I can see it barely, but there it is. But just to help guide me, I'm going to put a pin about 1/2 inch on one side and another 1/2 inch on the other side to let me know that there's where my line is going. Especially on this blue part, you can't really see it because the pencil is blue. So I'm just going to put some pins there to guide me. And I've already got this one over here. Let me add another one on this side of the marking. I can barely see it, but I can see it on this pattern, on this printed fabric. Okay, now I'm going to do it over here. And this is probably going to end up with a whole bunch of pins. Okay, so now from this line that I have here, let me put it on this side of it, because I'm going to repeat whatever I do on this. I'm going to repeat it over here. I am going to go over, this ruler is 2 inches, so I can do another marking, another 2 inches. And again, mark it about 1/2 inch on one side, and then mark it on the other side. But I do have a pin here, so this one right here in the middle is good enough to hold all the fabric. But I just know that 1/2 inch this way is where my line is, and I can see it right there. And then I can just go ahead from that line again, mark another 2 inches, and then from that line mark another 2 inches. So what I did to this half, I'll do to this half, and then of course I'll do it to this piece of fabric. Now after I've done my lines diagonally, if I want, I can now go this other way and do some new marks. After I've sewn all those, first do some new marks going down the center first, and then 2 inches, 2 inches, and so forth, okay, on both sides. And then I'll have like a little squared off little quilted pattern. But I think I'm just going to do the diagonal ones for now, and we'll see how that looks. Okay, so now that I have sewn my 2 panels, I've got them right here, and now I can go ahead and trim off the excess of the felt around the edges. So that's what I was saying. It's better if it's a little bit bigger, because when you do these little stitch lines, it tends to pull fabrics one way or another. So you just want to go ahead and do it just a little bit bigger. And then the other thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and also kind of square off what you've done here, because it may have moved the fabric, you know, around. So I'm going to go ahead and square off. Now that I'm here, I have it straight on my grid right here. square off the bottom here. So I'm going to be trimming not only the felt, but a little bit of the fabric. It doesn't have to be perfect because I'm not making a quilt, you guys. I'm just making myself a little travel bag, if you will. So now I've got a nice straight bottom, semi-straight side. So now the other, and let me line it up here. There we go. Okay, now that I've done this one, I'm going to do the other one the same way, removing the excess felt bits. Okay, and then also squaring it off a little bit. And I could see that, I think it was this edge down here kind of went down a little bit. So I'm just going to trim off that tiny little bit. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, you guys, because I'm not going to add any more. These are not quilt squares. I'm not going to add more to it. Now, if it was quilt squares, I'd want to make sure that they were all nicely square, because once you start adding more, then you can start seeing with the distortion of the patterns, things don't align well. But this is just that one bit that I'm doing, and I think it looks really nice. So I'm going to repeat it with this one, and then we're going to go to forming a front pocket before we continue on to any other parts or cutting out any other bits, like the sides, for example, or even working on the zipper. I'm going to add a pocket to one side, and I think I want to make it where I maybe sew it down the middle as well, so that I can fit two hands inside, so I can have a pocket for my phone, and then just another pocket maybe for some keys. And I don't want the like the keys hitting my phone, so I want to make a separate pocket. Maybe one pocket smaller than the other. We'll see. But let me go ahead and trim this off, and then we'll work on that. Alright, you guys, the next thing I did, because I'm going to do my pocket on one of the panels, I'm not going to do it on the other one. I just want a pocket on one side of the bag. I could do it on both sides if I wanted to, but I actually want this whole pattern of these little strips that I did to show off. So I'm going to do one side that does not have a pocket. And how do I choose that? It really doesn't matter. They're both pretty much the same. But I went ahead and I went with this one as being the one that's not going to have a pocket, because it's got a nice little camera right here. And it's got some nice little buildings that are kind of full, and then this little bit here, the Italy, London. You know, those are all pretty nice. And then it's got Ola up here, which it wouldn't get covered because the pocket would go down here. But I don't want any of this covered. So we're going to go ahead and do it on this one, even though we have some nice scenery on here. But see, my little camera here is cut off. So this is going to be the side where I'm going to put the pocket. Now my pocket, I'm choosing this fabric. Of course, you can use the same fabric, the same printed fabric. So, you know, if you don't have the variety of fabrics that I have, just use what you have. And if it's all the same, you have one solid piece, and you just want to add a solid piece of pocket, that's perfect. Okay, so I've already gone ahead and like I said, I've cut these, but I've also overlapped them together, and I make sure that my seams were matching here, and they were matching at the top as well. You know, that where I sewed, these strips are matching, you know, with each other. They're like right on each other. So I did that, and then I made sure that I cut them both the exact size. Okay, so my squares are ending up now at about 13¼ inch this way, pretty much the same over here, and that would be the width. And the length, I'm still like at 12¾ I did trim a tiny little bit off, so I have a little bit less, but that's fine, because this is what's going to tell me how big my bag is actually going to be. I wanted a 12 by 12, and I'm more or less going to get that. Okay, I'm going to make maybe a little bit less, but that's fine. Okay, so like I said, this is going to be my side that I'm not going to put any pocket on. And I also want to mark the top, because, you know, my pattern here, this is the top. You're looking at it from your angle. This is the top. So I'm putting a pin there just to remind me that that is a top. Put it over. I've got this piece here. This one is also kind of wants to crimp in a little bit. It doesn't lay flat very well, so I'm going to cover that with a pocket. And I'm also going to mark the top. I don't have to, because I'm going to be measuring a pocket for it right now. So let me go ahead and open up this. Wait, hold on. I'm going to use this one with the cameras on it. I thought it was super cute. Look at that. Look at all these cameras. They're all so cute. Now, I really don't want to waste any fabric, but at the same time, I kind of want to figure this out where I have a nice, cute little camera in the middle. And I think I want my pocket to be about 6 inches. or you know, halfway up to here. And of course I'm going to give it a little bit extra to fold in. But I think I'm going to do a little trim at the top. Where's my red? Oh, here, there's red fabric right here. I want to do like a little trim at the top of the pocket. I kind of like this camera right here, but let me see how big is, if I had to capture that camera, or maybe I'll work with this one on the edge. This is, if I measure up 6 inches, it's right here. So we'll be cutting that off halfway. Now I could move this up so that I could have this camera somewhere in the middle of my 6 inches. But, you know, I'm going to be discarding this much fabric. And if you don't care to discard it, go ahead. I kind of want to save it because I really like this fabric. So instead of discarding all the way over here, I'm just going to get my 6 inches from here. So this little camera can kind of be in the middle. Now it's going to have a little stitch off to the side. Yeah, because I want to make one pocket bigger than the other. But it's all going to be one piece. Okay, let me go ahead and cut out of here the width. And see, it's not going to be centered because I'm cutting it right here. So my little camera is going to be off to the side right about here. So should I go with this one, you guys? You know what? I'm going to go with that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and I have this blue fabric. That's the center. So this is going to tell me how wide I should cut it. And I'm going to go just a little bit bigger. And I'll use my scissors for that. After all, I did buy this fabric just so I can make this bag. And I bought half a yard of these fabrics, and this one with a print I actually bought a yard of that. I didn't know how I was going to coordinate it when I was in the store. Okay, I went a little bit big, but that's okay. Okay, we're going to cut that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and iron this because it's really wrinkled and I want it to lay nice and flat. Okay, so now that I have ironed this piece, it's not very well ironed. I can see a little wrinkle right there. Okay, so now I said that this was going to be right in the middle, so I'm aligning it with this. Right, kind of in the middle. But it's going to be the bottom half of my pocket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this right in the half of the little camera here and fold that part in half. And then I'm going to fold this in half as well. Let me take this pin off for now. Oh, I can see here that it's not very square now. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to align this camera with the bottom part here. I don't want it, you know, in the middle over here. I want it somewhere right here. So, like about right here. Like about right here. And then where we sew it, we'll lose a little bit of here, of that part right there. So that's fine. So, that's good. Let me go ahead and place it flat, that fold up against my edge here, and then I can use my straight edge here, and I'm going to use this line right here to cut it. So here we go. Cut off that piece. Do a little better job here. I think I need a new blade on my rotary cutter. There we go. Okay, now I said I wanted it about 6 inches, but I got to give it, you know, room for the seams and all that, you know, where I'm going to sew it. So 1/4 inch down here, 6 inches is right here. And you know what? I'm going to give a little bit of I'm going to do like a little bit of a trim up in the top here on the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this at 6.5 because I don't want to sew any part of that. Okay, let's do that. Where was 6.5? Okay, 6.5 is somewhere a little bit above the where the camera ends. And I'm going to use this line right here to trim. Okay, so here we go. Now we've got this nice little piece here. And I'm going to compare it again. Let me mark this again with the top part. And I want to align it right here. So let's do this. Let me put that pin away. And we'll do the same over here. Ouch, I've got a line. I poked myself, sorry. And we'll do that. Okay, so that's a pretty little pocket. Okay, to this, I want to add a little bit of red trim on the top. So I think I just need to cut a very thin strip, and I'm trying to decide if I want to cut an inch, and then if I lose a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch, that'll be a 1/2 inch little strip. I think that'll be cute. Okay, let's do a 1/2 inch strip, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to use it from the edge over here, so I don't, you know, lose a whole 1/2 inch that way. I'll just use it, cut it off of this end over here. Let me fold it like this so I can see the lines. You know what? I'm going to go 1.5 inches. That way I'll have 1 inch strip once I've sewn it and all that. Okay, now I need my cutter. There we go. This is up to you if you want to do all that. Okay, so now I can take this, and then I'll take this little strip of fabric right on the edge here, and then I'll just trim that once I've sewn it. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this 1/4 inch all the way down. Oops. And then I'll cut off, you know, a little, well, I can do it now. Let's go ahead and cut it off now. A little bit longer than it should be. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew that, and then I'll iron it, and then I'll go like this, you know, open it up, and then iron that nice and flat. And then we'll be back. And we're going to actually cut a piece of felt. Once I open this up and I've ironed it, I'm going to cut a piece of felt just a little tiny bit bigger, just like we did with these panels, you know, like I did, or if you're doing it, we did, just like we did with these panels. And I don't know if I'm going to do these little stitching lines, okay? We'll see. Okay. Okay, so I've sewn this trim to the edge here, and then I've gone ahead and I've ironed it open, and then I've actually gone and sewn down little stitches down all the way on here. As you can see, I didn't do it on the red part, on the trim part. I just started right underneath that. I thought it would be nicer if the trim didn't have that, the little red trim. So now I'm just gonna trim off the little threads. I've already trimmed them off on the on this inside part. So now I've trimmed them off of here. So now what I want to do is I want to trim now my felt, because, you know, I cut it a little bit, you know, a little bit bigger. So now I can go ahead and trim it. One layer cut out from here. Of course, if it's ironed, it's always better, but you know, I'm just doing this, you guys. Iron it, iron it, iron it. There we go. Okay, all right. So now we're going to take this piece of fabric. Let me go ahead and iron it. Okay, so now we're going to take this fabric that we cut, facing the right sides together. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch up here at the top, so then we can open it up, iron it again, and then fold it inward. So this will be the lining of our pocket, or the inside of our pocket. So let me go ahead and sew that, and then I'll show you. Okay, now we're going to open it up. I'm actually going to spray it a little bit. You can use fabric starch if you want. I'm just using water. Get that nice and open. And then we're going to fold this in. And we want to make sure that when we fold it, we pull on the blue so that it's on the inside. Now, if you want to have a little blue edge up there, you know, that actually looks really cute. But if you want to do that, make sure that you cut this long enough to meet this edge. Otherwise, you know, don't. Don't do that. Okay, so I want this to be right inside. So pull on the blue. Okay. And it's actually, when we're pulling on the blue, it's okay to have a little bit of the red pop over. So we can have a nice, you know, line like that, okay? And then we'll know that this fabric reaches all the way down here. Okay, so before I go on, I'm going to pin this down so I can make sure that that blue stays on that side over here, on the back, that it stays over here. Pin it. Do the same over here on this end. I'm pinning it from this side because I'm going to sew on over it. So just make sure this is all nice and pulled down, and now down here I can go ahead and pin it. Make sure the fabric doesn't move on me. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew right between here, the red and the white fabric. I'm going to sew that together so this lining doesn't move. And I'm also going to sew it at the bottom to make sure that these two pieces, this part doesn't move on me. So when I then end up sewing it to this piece here, everything gets caught, and then this lining in here won't like maybe fold up a little bit, and then won't get caught, and then I'll have a little hole inside of my pocket. So I want to make sure that I do sew it there and sew it up here. Okay, so that's my next step, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now that I've pinned it down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide how big I want my pockets to be. So I want 2 pockets here. I could have one big one, but I actually want 2 because what I tend to do is I like to put my phone separate from my keys or anything else. So I'm going to create a pocket just for my phone right here. That's good enough. And of course I need to make sure that I need this seam allowance over here. So I think I'm going to sew right about this edge right here where I have the camera. If you don't have something to, like a little picture of a camera, of course, then pin it. Now, when I sew this down like here, again, I'm not going to sew it on the red part. So the red part's going to be, you know, kind of flippy like that. But right down here, because I don't want to have a stitch right here, I'm going to start right underneath the trim and then go down. Now, if you didn't have a trim there and it's all the same, then of course you could start at the very top. But I'm just going to give it a nice good back and forth right here so it doesn't come apart on me. Now, if you want to do some little bit of stitching down the sides over here and you know, the bottom and the sides, just to keep them together, you can remove all these pins and go right ahead and do so. I'm probably just going to do sorry. I'm just going to sew a little bit here, maybe here in the corners, and of course this bit that I'm going to sew down is going to hold the pieces together. Okay, I'll be back and we'll do our next step. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to cut the top part of our bag where I'm going to put the zipper on, and I decided to go ahead and use the entire length of my zipper, because what I'm hoping to do is that the zipper will kind of curve around the sides, so it'll be able to open a little bit wider than just the top of the mouth of the bag. So this is what I'm going to do. I want the sides of my bag and the top and of course the bottom to be about 4 inches wide. So I'm going to want my bag to be that 4 inches. So in order to figure this out to be about 4 inches or maybe a little bit more, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a strip of fabric that's going to go on this side of the zipper and another one that's going to go on this side. Now the zipper is obviously going to give me a little bit of length. So to figure this out correctly, I'm going to cut out 3 inches and 3 inches. I know that 3 inches and 3 inches, that's 6, but give me a moment here, because that's going to take away, when I sew it onto here, it's going to take away 1/2 inch on this side, 1/2 inch on this side. So then that lowers it to 2.5 inches. Now then I want to sew it to the top. When I sew it to the top edge of my bag, I want to have at least, you know, 1/2 inch, because I did say I was going to have 1/2 inch over here. So then that's going to give me 2 inches, and 2 inches, that's my 4 inch width plus whatever little bit of space I might have here for the zipper. So that's going to give me about the size that I want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've already aligned my fold. I folded it, my fabric twice, and then I've aligned it nice and straight, and then I've squared it off over here already. So I've put my ruler there and I've cut, and now I'm going to measure 3 inches down, whatever length of this happens to be. So 3 inches. Going to make sure I'm at the 12, no, I'm at the 15, so that's 3 inches. Okay, we're probably going to cut some more. We don't know yet right now. Okay, let's make sure this is enough to be twice. I'm going to move this down a little bit here. I want 2 pieces on each side of my zipper. And this is long enough. So let me go ahead and just go ahead and cut. I'm just going to cut it where the fold was because it's long enough. Okay. All right. So let's get my little board here and our little strips of fabric, and we're going to iron them and make sure that they're nice and pretty. Both pieces. It's such a pretty red. I love it. I think it's going to bring out a lot of this, a lot of the print on here, just like it's done over here. I think that looks really nice. Now, yes, I did lose a little bit of this pattern that I created, but I think this little camera pocket is so pretty. And then I'm going to have it on the other side complete like that, so it'll be really nice. Okay. Now, I said I was going to fold about 1/2 inch. So we're going to do about 1/2 inch fold here just to make sure. A little bit less. Okay. If I go 1/4 inch, that's fine. If I do a little bit less, it's fine. Okay. This bag is not going to be like, oh, I want it to be exactly a certain size. This is, I'm just showing you this because you can do this, and if your bag comes out a little bit, you know, a little bit bigger than mine, a little bit smaller, that's okay. You choose your size. If you want to make it even bigger, go right ahead. This is just an idea of how to put this together. Okay, so I'm going to do another one over here as well, about 1/2 inch. That's about 1/2 inch. Okay, so now let's move this out of the way. I'm going to take this fabric and just let it go a little bit beyond the length of the zipper here. That's fine. We'll trim it. So I want it to be right up against the teeth. Sometimes what we do is sometimes we overlap the teeth a little bit so that when you get these, both of these here, and they're overlapping the teeth, then you kind of hide that. But I don't care if the teeth show. That's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and pin it right here. I want to be able to see that black line. It'll look really cool. Pin it. Okay, turn it around, and I'm going to do the same with this other piece on the other side. And make sure it overlaps this way and it overlaps the length of your zipper. Okay, so I'm going to start sewing. Now, it gets tricky when you get to the point where you got these little, you know, these little guys here, and they're in the way, so you can't get like really close here to sew. So I'll show you what I do at the sewing machine, okay? Okay, so here I am. I'm started sewing right along the edge here, right against the teeth of my zipper, and I backstitched before I, you know, kept on going. And now I'm just gonna continue. And you kind of have to pull at it and just jump over some parts here, little metal parts that get in the way. Right at the beginning of the zipper, there's that little metal part that goes across. Backstitch again. And as I move up, I'm going to be removing the pins, but I'm going to use the pin to kind of poke and hold my fabric so it doesn't, you know, spread out on me. So I'm just going to keep it there until I get as close as I can to these bits here. I can remove that one. I'm actually going to slide this down and slide it some more so I can continue. And whatever I'm doing on this side, I'm going to turn it around and do to this other side. Now I do prefer the fabric not to meet like that, to be trying to get it as, you know, to have a complete closure. I'd rather it be a little open, because also when you're opening your zipper, you could catch that fabric in the little teeth of your, you know, and it's just going to make it a hassle because it could get stuck, and then sometimes you can't close or open your zipper, you gotta take things apart and sew it up again. It's just a lot of trouble. So it's best to just let the, you know, there be like a little gap opening right there where you can see the teeth. So just make sure you get a zipper that coordinates with the color of your purse or your bag that you're making. Okay, so see, my fabric is moving a little bit, but that's okay, it's moving. That's why I needed it to have, you know, extra at the beginning and then of course at the end, because, you know, the fabric will move a little bit. Okay, I'm almost. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to keep my needle inside, you know, my fabric, you know, keep it in there. Don't pull it up, just keep it in there. And then just keep it as high as you can, and then just push this open. You can lift up the foot of your sewing machine here, and then open up your zipper. And then I'm going to push this one closed. It's going to go down. It's going to be a nice little tight little bit, but I'm moving the zipper opening so they'll be out of the way so I can finish sewing over here. So now put the foot back down. Don't forget to do that. And then you can just continue where you left off because you left your needle in there. Okay, again, I'm going to put my needle in there, and then I can maneuver these guys, lift up your foot, maneuver these zipper bits, and open it that way. And if you only had one of these, of course, you would only have to move one out of the way, and you can have your zipper open and finish it off. But I have another one over here, so I want to move that one out of the way, so I'm actually closing my zipper, and that's fine. Let's see. There we go. Okay, now that it's out of the way, I can put my foot back down and finish off. Again, maneuvering around this little metal part and then back stitching to hold that fabric or that thread. Kind of a weird stitching here. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, so before I continue sewing anything else, I need to cut out the lining. So what I did is I cut out 2 solid pieces of fabric right here. These 2 pieces. And we're going to be building these just like we're going to build this part. Okay, except that we don't need the felt and we don't need to do any quilting. We're not even going to put any pockets in it. It's just going to be a simple lining. So I've cut this to the size of these rectangles. Okay, now I want to keep in mind, because of the size measurements, the measurements that I used, this is what's going up and down, and this is the width. So I'm just going to put a pin up here for now on this, just to mark them. Put it there, and then I'm also going to have to create the lining that goes on the other side of the zipper. So I've cut out, you know, 3-inch wide pieces. No, just made them long. Doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because we're going to trim it. So I've cut 2 of those, and then I folded in 1/2 inch and ironed that on both of them. So this is what's going to line the inside of the zipper. But this is all going to get attached to this bag because we're like creating a separate bag that's going to get then tucked inside of this bag, and then we're going to sew it where the opening of the zipper is. And I'll show you that at the end. But anyway, I've got those 2 pieces right here. So now let's get these. I'm going to put them like this. This is the top, and this is the top. This zipper part is going to go, let me move these out of the way. The zipper part is going to go right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in half, mark the half here and on here, and then I'm going to mark these where the half is so that I can just align them like that, so that I can make sure that then these 2 pieces are straight up with each other like that. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to mark my halves. Okay, so this zipper is obviously longer than these are, but like I said, I kind of want these to go rounded off on the sides here. So then the side that I'm going to have here, I have to cut it the width of whatever this ended up being. So I'm just going to cut some really long pieces that'll continue on the side, and then I can wrap around and longer than halfway over here at the bottom and then I can sew it at the bottom when I get there. But I'll be showing you what I mean by that. So first, let's go ahead and cut out of this red long pieces, and let me see what length this is. Okay, I've got plenty here to do one long strip and then another long strip, and that'll be enough to go, see, this is the top of the bag, to go down the sides and then over here. And then of course another piece for the other side. Okay, let's see, we need it to be at least this length plus more than half. Oh, well, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and just do 2 long strips just to make sure that I have enough. So I'm going to get this piece of fabric and I'm going to square it off as well. So on the folds, line it up on here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut sides for the inside part of my bag as well. Okay, so whatever I cut here, I need to cut the same out of this fabric for my lining. I should call this lining. Now I don't know if I have enough left over, so I might have to cut it out of some blue, so I'll do the sides of my lining with the blue. It doesn't matter. Okay, let's square this off. Okay, now how wide are we supposed to cut these? Because here's our zipper. Now I've got 2 1/4 inch on one side and 2 1/4 inch, but then I've also got another about 1/4 inch right here. So let's put this against here, and then we'll mark it here, and it's about 1 2 3 4 5 inches. 1 2 3 4 5. So we're going to cut this 5 inches wide. Yeah. Here we go. Let's cut right there. And I'm going to do another one. So 1 2 3 4 5. I want to make sure that I have enough of this to go all the way around my bag. So I purchased this fabric just for this. This is a little scrap left over. Maybe this will be enough for the other sides on the inside. We'll see. Okay. So now that we've got these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take right side with the end of my zipper right here. Now I'm going to sew this. Remember there was that little metal part right here? I'm going to sew across, but I want to go inside of that little metal parts. Okay, so we're going to sew this end to here. Let me pin them like that. So then that'll be sewn on to it like that. Okay, now the other strip that I cut, I'm going to sew it, let's see, on the other end here. Let me turn it around so I can see where the little metal piece is. And sew this, or pin this actually. Again, we're going to sew so that we're inside, so that little metal piece gets caught inside that little sewed piece. So here we go. I've got these 2 parts where I'm going to sew. So I'll be back once those are done. Okay, so now I'm going to work on the sides. This is the top of my bag. This is going to be side, and then part of this is going to go underneath for the bottom. The same over here. This is going to go around the side and then the bottom of the bag. Okay, so but on these sides I want to go ahead and put felt so that they're nice and have some nice body, like the 2 panels that are going to go in the front and the back. Now I'm not going to repeat this for the lining part. I'm just going to do this for the outer part of my bag. So I'm going to turn this over, and I've already cut strips of felt the same width as these pieces that I've sewn here after my zipper, and I've actually cut them the same length. So I'm just going to place this, lift this little seam here that I've sewn, place it over it, put it right there, right up against it. I'm going to turn it around. Now here's what you could do. You could top stitch right along here, about a 1/2 inch if you want to do that. So it kind of looks like the thread's going here. You could also sew down if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it simple like that, because when I sew it to the sides here and at the bottom, that'll grab all the felt. But I am going to pin it so it stays together. The only thing I am going to do is do that top stitching right along the top here. So I'm going to turn this one around. Put that on there. Tuck this right underneath there. There we go. Turn it around. And I did go ahead and iron this down as well on these two edges. Here and here where I sew these two pieces to the zipper part. I ironed that down. And let me go ahead and just pin it so it stays in place for now. Okay, so I'm going to do my little top stitching. And as a matter of fact, I might just do a little stitch down here, a little tiny one, little short one, just to keep this end, you know, attached to down here. Because when I start sewing it to, or pinning it to these parts, I'm going to have to take these pins off so they're not in my way. And just don't want to make sure that the felt moves. So I'm going to do like just a little stitch there. Okay, so I'll be back. Alright, so I went ahead and I did the top stitching that I was going to do here. Now I went ahead and went bigger because at that 1/4 inch mark, that little metal part of the zipper was right there, and when I was starting to sew there, I actually broke my needle, so I had to unsew that and redo it and do the same thing on the other side. And then I just did like a little stitch mark right here just to hold the fabric here on the ends together, and another little stitch mark over here just to hold the fabric together like that. Now, my purse is going to have handles. Now the decision is whether I want 2 short handles on each side, let's say on the panel side, the front and the back on these two. Whatever I do to this one, I would do the same to this one. Okay, but I'm just going to use this one as an example. So you would then decide, well, how long do you want your straps to be? So I'm going to grab it like that, and then like that, and then I could just mark how long I wanted them to be and trim it. So what I would actually do is I would just fold this down, pin it, and then sew like a little rectangle so I can grab all the little edges, maybe crisscross it right there. I would do the same thing over here. Of course, before I do that, I would cut the second strap so that I could do the same thing over here. So then I would just measure between here and then how far down I went so that I would know where to place the strap over here. And therefore then I would have 2 straps, and then I'll have to just bring them down like that, pin them in place so I get them out of the way while I'm doing the rest of the work. But I decided that instead of having 2 little straps like that, because I like to hang bags over my shoulder rather than, you know, on my arm here. I feel like that's too short. And instead of putting like 2 long, really long strips, I'm going to go, or straps, I'm going to go ahead and put a long one going like that, and I want it to be attached to the sides here of my bag rather than, you know, the front panel and the back panel. So I'm going to do that, and I have here 2 yards, so I'm just going to cut it in half, and I'm going to use 36 inches because I feel like that's enough. Okay, so I'm just going to use one of these, and I can save this other piece for something else. So instead of attaching it to the front panels, I'm going to attach it to the sides of my purse. Now this is going to go down a little bit like that, so I'm actually going to use right underneath where I did these stitch lines right here to attach. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the strap, let me trim off the little bit there. I'm going to put the strap like this first, and then just sew once across like that. Okay, so let me grab it so it's all going in the right way, and then I'm going to put it over here, and I'm going to measure how much I went down over here, and it's about 1 inch, so about 1 inch. put my strap down. I'm actually going to center with my zipper here. And I'm going to go down about 3/4 of an inch or so, and then sew like that first. So let me center this one because it's not centered, this one over here. Okay, so I've sewn this little part, and I've actually done the other end as well. So now I'm going to bring this up like that, line it up, and then I'm going to pin it. Oops, grab a pin, and I'm going to repeat the same on the other side. Okay, so now I'm going to sew over it like that, and then if I want, I can do a little X like that, and then come down the bottom here. So sew across, come make a little X, go this way, and then come back up. Okay. And make sure you back stitch when you get started. Let me put this that way. Maybe you can see like that what I'm doing. Okay. Okay, keep the needle in there. I'm going to sew across to this corner now. That little corner, and then I'm going to sew across the bottom part right where it folds. Okay, can you see? There. One more, and then I'm going to go across to meet up this little corner over here. There, and that's it. So this is what it looks like. I went across, down, across, and then back up, and I back stitch when I started and when I ended. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat that on this other side. The same thing, just line it up really nicely, and then stitch, then back down, across, and then back up. Okay, so here is the strap all done, and there you can see that I did my cute little stitching on it. So now I'm going to keep my strap from moving around. I'm just going to pin it down like that. At some point just fold it and pin it down. Okay, the other thing I want to do is I'm going to want to open my zipper, but I'm not going to open it quite yet. Okay, so now I'm going to take my panels, the top part. This is the top part of my panel, and I made a little dart cut right there. And this is the other top of my panel, and I made a little tiny little cut right there, a little dart. That's going to align with the little darts that I've made here on either side of the fabric. Do you see that little dart there? There's one on this side as well. Okay, so I'm going to start off by adding one of the panels first. Let's put this one aside. We'll do this one first. I'm going to align right there, pin them. Let me turn this around. I'd rather do it the other way. Let's do it this way. Okay, so align our darts, pin them, and then I'm going to pin along the top edge, and then as close as I can to the edge right here, pin. And this is a tricky part, but you're going to get as close to the edge as possible, and then you're going to kind of curve it around like that. Grab that little corner, flatten it down, pin, oops, let me do it again. Bring it as close to the edge as possible, and then curve this piece right here to go around it like that. And then you're gonna just push down on it right in the middle, pin that, and then come around, pin that, and now you're doing the side of the bag. You're going to do the same when you come around this little corner. You're going to do the same thing as you did up here. So make sure you pin as much as you can. And this is where there's lots of fabric here, so just curve it like that, push down on it, pin that little curved corner. Make sure all the fabric is on the edge here. And then pin it again right here. And before you get to the middle, and I made a little dart there, I'm going to stop about, maybe 3 inches and just pin right there. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to start sewing from this middle part all the way around. I'm going to go 1/2 inch in the top, and then when I come around the corner here, I'm just going to lift up my foot, twist my fabric with my needle in it, and then start sewing 1/4 inch down to this other corner. And then again, when I get to the corner, leave my needle in, twist my fabric, push my foot back down 1/4 inch up to this right here. So I'm going to stop right there. Okay? And I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. So I'm going to bring it as close as I can to the corner, round this around here, pin it right in the middle, bring it down and pin it, and to this corner the same thing, and bring it around the bottom up to about 3 inches. This is the center, about 3 inches. I'll stop right there, I'll pin it right there, and then I'll stop sewing there. And I'm then going to do the other part. Okay, so first let's do this one, and then I'm going to be back and I'll show you how then we can maneuver to add this other panel. When you're coming around the corner, leave that pin in there, don't take it out. And all this fabric just kind of folded. It's kind of tough because of the zipper here. So, but you have to just kind of push it down. If you have to pin it all down, do that. So I'm still coming at 1/2 inch seam. I'm coming around to the corner. I'm going to leave the needle in there, lift up the foot, twist my fabric, okay? And I'm going to go 1/4 inch on this end, on this side. Okay, I'm getting close to that little corner. Leave my needle in there. Lift up my foot. I can twist my fabric. Put my foot down. Pull out that pin now. And there we go. You kind of have to do like a little bit of a rounded movement when you come around that little corner. Okay, so now 1/4 inch. Okay, I'm coming around the corner. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take off this pin, but I'm going to leave the one that's right in the corner in there. And, oops, try not to poke yourself. Get as close to that corner with your needle. And then leave it in there. Now I can remove this pin that's in the corner and this one over here. Lift up my foot. And I'm going to twist my fabric, making sure that that little corner is getting grabbed, and I'm kind of going to do like a little bit of a curve sewing. There we go. And this is the pin that I marked where I'm going to stop. So I'm just going to lift that up because my fabric has kind of been sliding a little bit. So I'm just going to pull it, and I'm going to stop. Here's my center dart. I'm going to stop right about right here. Okay. I'm going to repeat the same thing for this other side, but I have to pin it down. But here I've got this sewn. You can see that little corner. And then this is going to turn over like that. It's going to look really nice when it turns over. Okay? So that's what we're creating on the bag. Okay, let me do the other side. Okay, so there's something that I wanted to note. On this other side, where I meet up this first seam here, when I sew down the side here, I want to make sure that this side and this side, I'm going to try to align it so that this is the same distance going down as the other one. So I'm putting the edges together and they're aligning right on it. Perfect line. Now they're not going to be touching each other, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but I want to try and get it to look as nice as I can all the way around my bag. So I'm going to basically create the same thing when I do the other piece, when I sew it to this part. I want to make sure that this distance is the same right here. That's the little corner. Okay. Okay, so I've sewn all the way around. Came over here, started up again at this middle, sewn all the way around, and I left an area here where I did not sew this down yet, but this is what it looks like when I pop it open like that. See? So now I want to add the other panel to the other side, and that can get a little tricky, but we can do it. I'm going to take these pins off of here, these straps. I'm actually going to bring the strap down somewhere in the middle here so it doesn't get caught with any of my sewing. And now I'm going to open these zippers. And I'm going to need them open a little bit, doesn't matter how much, just enough so that I can turn it over after I've sewn this panel on there. So we're going to start by putting those little notches together. And I'm actually going to sew from this side. Put all the pins there. Put one as close as I can to the corner. And then I'm going to round this up right in the middle, pin it, and then bring it right on the edge like that. Pin that, and then I'm going to compare this right here to this right here, and it matches, so that's good. Keep pinning it right here. Of course, what I'm doing to this side, I'm going to do to the other side. Okay, again, I have another corner. I want to do the same thing that I did over here. And then when I bring it around to this bottom part, I'm only going to sew up to a certain point because, again, I want to leave a little bit of a gap. Here's my little center mark. So I'm going to leave a little, about 3 inches before I get to the center gap. And then, of course, the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. Start pinning it around like so. Again, stopping 3 inches before I get to this bottom gap. Now, I have a lot of layers of fabric here because, you know, we've got the pocket here. So I'm just going to go carefully sew that so that I can form a casing all the way around. And then when it's all sewn, I can use this part to bring out and turn it over right side out. Just like the lining. I did the lining the same exact way. So here we go. Here's the corners done right there. Right there. Here's the one panel. Here's the other side panel. Here's the top part. Mine is the zipper. So basically that's what I'm going to do to this other pieces, and then I can just turn them over right sides like that. Bring out those little corners. There we go. Bring out those little corners. These corners of my lining came out pretty good. Now, I didn't have enough fabric to do, you know, at all this color, so I ended up putting this blue on here, but that's fine. It's in the inside of my purse. Okay, so then all this is the way this one's going to look, okay? Of course, this is my lining, so I don't have to turn it inside out because I actually want to tuck this into my bag, but I'll show you that part when we get to it. So I'm going to sew this other panel on here now. Okay, so I finished sewing these parts here, as you saw, and then I lined this up as close as I could, and then I folded it down, and then I got the other piece that was coming over like that as well, put it on against there and pinned it. I did the same thing to the other side so that I would have them even here, and then I sewed that seam down, and then I trimmed off the pieces, which I believe the video got cut off somewhere right before that, I'm not sure, and I'm really sorry that I got cut off. But then you're just going to open up these seams, and once this side over here is thicker, because you know it's grabbing that little pocket, that the fabric, so there's extra layers over here, so I'm going to go ahead now sew that. Always make sure you have enough thread in there. Okay, do a little back stitch, and then just carefully sew this because it's so many layers. I want to remove the pin before I get to them because I don't want my needle to break. Okay, let's cut that off and do the other side. Okay, so here we are. Now we can turn this inside out. Be careful because remember we pinned this straps in there, so we don't want to poke ourselves with that. So I'm just going to poke out right here where the corners are. Let me get these threads off of here first. Try to trim off all the threads, but you never know. And it's okay if they get caught in there, no big deal. Okay, we're going to turn this around. And then we can remove these pins to let go of the strap here. Look at my cute bag, you guys. Pop those corners out. There we go. Any little threads. Trim them off. But there we are. Here's the opening, and we can zip it up like so we can close it. But it's not done because we have to put a lining in there, and because I don't want it like that. So I've got my lining. There's the bottom. Let's get these threads off of it. I'm just going to tuck it in there, okay? And then we're going to take right here where it opens up right here, pin that right underneath where the zipper is. Just pin it in there. Just a little pin there. Okay, over here as well, we're going to get these little corners into the corner there, this corner into this corner as well, and then pin that little opening. So we want to line it up. Now this part, I'm going to now bring it up right along the edge of the zipper and pin ever so often, pin it all the way. The little edge that we ironed. Okay. Now we can see that we can bring this one down a little bit. Pin it. Okay, since we started over here, we're now going to pin this corner like that. Make sure they're together the two corners. So now we're going to get this fabric right along the zipper again. Pin that little folded edge. And we're just going to pin it all the way till we get to the other side over here, so that we have a lining that's going to be inside of our bag. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with my sewing machine and make another stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the stitch that I already have here on the outside here, making sure that I'm capturing this lining as I sew around. I'm going to sew all the way around. I'm going to end up right here. I'm not going to go around like that. There's a lot of bulk there. Well, I could go around, but I really don't want to stitch down into here. So I'm just going to stitch all the way down to here, just all the way into the end, and then cut the thread there, start up over here, and then sew this other edge of the lining all the way down to over here. Okay? And that should be sewn. You can do it by hand if you don't want to put it in the sewing machine, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll be back when that is all sewn. Alright everyone, I have finished the bag and I have sewn. You can see the top stitching right here where I sewed the lining that's inside. Open this up. As you can see, it is now fully lined all the way in there. Here's the lining. Push it back in there. And we have these nice little pockets right here in the front. And I really like the straps coming off the sides. Nice long, one nice long strap rather than two. Now if you wanted the short ones, like I said, you could put two short ones, one in the front, one in the back. But look at that, it looks pretty. Either way you hang it off of your shoulder, this way or this way. Okay, well let's zip it closed. And that's nice. You just open one side if you want it, or both. You know, you could do however you wanted to do it. I'm just going to kind of center these. It would be cute to hang maybe a little charm off of these little zipper part, these little bits on the zipper. What are these called? Do y'all know what it's called? I know that I knew. I don't anymore. But anyway, I really like the straps coming off the two sides. It looks really pretty. I think maybe the colors also really add to the look of the bag. So I think that if you choose different fabrics to do this, and as you saw, how the way that I created it, I didn't use a pattern. I basically cut the pieces as I was going along, and I think that's the best way to do it. Just make yourself some little notes on the side, and if you want later you can cut it out of some paper and make yourself a little pattern, or at least draw it in a pad and write all the measurements that you've done. But I am very happy with it. This is basically how I create things without using a pattern, and this is going to be great for my travels whenever that happens. Well, anyway, everyone, I think it came out great, and I hope that you think so too. I'm going to give myself a big old thumbs up, and I hope that you too will give me a big old thumbs up. So leave a nice comment down below and let me know what you think. I would like to make a little zippered pouch that I can throw in there, where it can have some items in there, like a credit card or just some change in there. So if you'd like to see a video of me doing that, it'll be coordinating to this fabric on this bag. Let me know in the comments. Okay, so thank you to everyone who has been subscribing. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't, please hit that subscription button, and once you've done that, hit the little bell button, little notification bell. That'll let you know when my videos are uploaded, which is twice a week. Now I try to do a craft video and a recipe, and once in a while I do an additional vlog if I have something else in my life that I want to share with you guys. So if you also have any ideas of any upcoming videos, things that you'd like to see me do, you can also leave that in the description box. Oh, sorry, you can leave in the comments down below. But in the description box, I have the link to my Facebook page, Trisha's Creations. You can also go there. Please follow, and you can ask any questions there. You can message me through there if you like. But you can also post pictures of your projects on there and share your ideas and even your recipes. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching my video and staying this far into my video. Please give me a big old thumbs up. Like I said, it's really important. Share on your social medias, and as always, enjoy.